Welcome to the Apartment Operators Podcast, where you can learn from experienced operators what it really means to be an apartment operator. No fluff, no sugarcoating, just the raw, unfiltered truth of the ups and downs of operating multifamily communities.
Welcome, everybody, to the Apartment Operators Podcast. My name is Joseph Goslan. I'm your host, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Jack Bosch. Welcome to the show, Jack.
Thank you for having me, Joseph. I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. You have a lot of experience in so many different aspects in real estate. Why won't you take a couple of minutes and tell our audience a little bit about yourself, what you've done so far? You have an accent just like me, so tell us a little bit about the background for there and then what you're doing today.
Well, first of all, I have a much stronger accent than you. I've actually almost never hear your accent. But I sound like Arnold, just I don't look like him. My name is Jack Bosch. I'm actually from Germany originally. I came into the United States in 1997. 3 weeks into it, met my beautiful wife and wonderful and super smart and strong wife, Michelle. A few years into, we finished our college degrees here. We got jobs. We hated our jobs. We went from there to learn real estate and started a company together flipping land. So just like other people flip houses, we flip land, which is simpler than house flipping because there's no tenants, toilets, and termites, right? Which is something we're going to talk about a lot right now. And we made that our cash machine. We built that up, flipped over 4,000 pieces of land, and then turned the cash and the income. We realized at some point of time that if we want to ever retire really well and nicely and so on, then you can't retire in an active business because unless you sell the business, because otherwise, if you stop the business, then the income stops. So we realized that we needed to take the money from there. And even though we sell a lot of our land, we sell a financing, so we cash flow from land. Those are 5, 7, 10, 15-year notes that will also stop at some point of time. So we realized that what we need to do is we need to specialize not just on generating income, but on also allocating income and allocating assets and buying assets that last for our lifetime and then bringing cash flow for a lifetime. So we started adding to our land flipping and land flipping coaching, which we teach other people how to do that. We added to that first single family investing because we basically dipped our toe in it and says okay, let's figure out how these renters are and what's the deal with them. And dipped our toes in that, saw that we could actually manage a portfolio, not just where we live in Phoenix, but another portfolio in Cleveland and another portfolio in Omaha, Nebraska. And we're like, okay, I never have to go out there. We have a property manager in place. Let's step it up. And that's when we started syndicating apartment complex deals. And now we are invested either as general partners or the minority as also limited partners, but significant limited partners in about 700 units.
Awesome. So you got a lot going on, right? And one of the first things we ask everybody is self-managed or third party?
Third party.
Okay.
Everything. Even our single families are being managed by third party.
Okay. So what was the driver for the decision?
Well, we learned it on the single family because on the single family, I went from on the weekends. First, we started in our neighborhood, like in Phoenix. We bought some houses in like a C-class neighborhood, but a well-located C-class neighborhood that easy to get to the interstate, easy to get to everywhere. And these houses have been 100% full ever since we owned them. They're like, the moment they're vacant, you fix them up again and you got 5 applications within a matter of a few days. So, and good thing. And tenants are now staying in for like 8 years, 10 years already in those same properties. But what I realized is that we needed to go, but with our old car, we didn't use the Mercedes for it. We used the old Toyota 4Runner, right? Go house to house to house and pick up rent. And it was nice, but I'm soft at heart. And when people tell me when their lease comes up, and I was like, yeah, we got to increase the rent. They would tell me the story and the dog died and an emergency room and this and that and that. And it's like, well, okay, let's wait a little bit. And we realized we weren't as strict. If they broke a window, we ended up fixing it and paying for it. But they broke the window. The window doesn't break itself, right? Mm-hmm. So we're like, no, at some point of time, it's like, you know what? We want to go travel. We like traveling. So we like spending the summer 2-3 months going out of town and you can't pick up rent. So we brought in somebody else to pick up rent. who then supposedly was attacked by somebody and the money was stolen. Did it really happen? Did it not? We don't know, right? We don't know. So it's like, okay, that doesn't work. And then let's just go third party. And what we realized is that we're actually making more money on these rentals with third party than we'd made our own. Because now it's the property manager. It's like, well, the owner wants to increase the rent. We have to. It's our hands are bound. Well, you broke the window. The owner said, like, based on the law, you have to pay it. So we got that middleman that can be kind of like both good cop, bad cop, and do those things that are necessary to make the property perform and take people to court and evict and whatever is all necessary. And after that experience, was like, we're not going self-managing probably ever again. Plus, when we went to multifamily, our multifamilies are not close to us. The market in Phoenix where we live is extremely hot. Properties trade at the 3.5 cap or 4 cap, which is like crazy. And so we're going into the secondary, tertiary market. So we have properties in Oklahoma City, we have property in Kentucky, we have property in North Carolina. And I'm not going to go out there every week. So we go out there a few times a year, but we don't go out every week. So third party was the only way to go. I didn't want to have to manage higher payroll, all those things. I wanted somebody to be in place. So
you wanted a turnkey operation.
A turnkey operation. Now, did it work like that always? No. I can tell you couple of horror stories about that.
We'll get to that one in just a minute, right? So before we talk about the ordeals you have to go with the third-party management, how did you go about selecting your third-party partner?
Well, I can tell you how not to go about selecting.
That's just as valuable.
Well, now, the first property that we bought was a 90-unit Class C, 90-unit, all townhomes, beautiful property, Class C, older, 1980s, but a nice property. We still own it. Actually, we actually restructured the deal, bought our investors out, and we're going to own that for the next 20 years as just a buy and hold property. Just happened last year. But this property, the way we did it is we had a friend that also owns multifamily in a different state, and he knew this. He was like, my property management company is the best in the world. They're nationwide. They're absolutely amazing, and I trust this guy. He's a good guy. He's a friend of mine. I trust him. So I was like, okay. I talked to these guys. They said all the right things, but I didn't dig any deeper. So we hired them, and what it turns out to be that it was a company that bought local property management companies all over the country and was in the process of rolling them into their national brand. But in the process of them being rolled into the national brand, they kind of still operated in limbo in kind of like their own way. And what happened is that property management company that they had bought in the location where my friend owned multifamily, that happened to be a great operated property management company. The property management company that we were talking to and then ultimately hired ended up being a disgruntled owner of a single family property management company that ended up running our 90 unit apartment complex like a single family, meaning his team was not HVAC certified. That means we spent $40,000 over the next 6 months replacing air conditions that should have been repaired. They were not good managers. They, instead of keeping everyone in, because there was a lot of people on month-to-month rents, instead of keeping them in, they basically canceled they raised their rents and they all left. And then within literally 4 months, we went from a 90% occupied unit property to a 65% occupied unit, and we were bleeding left and right financially on that property. At that moment, we kicked them out, and then we learned how to properly select a property management company. I mean, you learn. We had them. Well, first of all, we asked around. We looked at the properties in the market that looked really nicely well maintained, that were full, that had nice rents. We asked who runs them. We selected them down. We interviewed them. We asked for referrals. We looked at we we just did a whole bunch of checks. We asked them if they're HVAC certified. We met up with their maintenance team. We met up with their leadership team. I mean, we dug deep to really see what is their philosophy, what are the actions that they're taking typically, and then we picked one, and we couldn't be happier. They brought this property back within 4 months to 90% again, and that's been all through COVID and everything. It has been 98 to 100% occupied with 97 to 98% rent collection. So I mean, they did an absolute fantastic job.
Yeah, so I just want to echo what you were saying. It's just in a little bit different way, because we've heard that over and over and over from previous guests in the show, is that it doesn't matter if it's a national brand or a local company or anything else. The only thing that actually matters is who's on site. Who is the actual people with the boots on the ground? Who is the manager of the property? Who is the regional supervisor of that property management company? And obviously processes and having the right accounting team and all that is super important, but they can have everything lined up in corporate, but if the people in the field are not good, it's not going to end up well for anybody. So unfortunately, we have the exact same experience as everybody else that we've heard before.
100% agree. That one that we ended up hiring was they every year they win various awards of the National Apartment Complex Management Association or whatever it's called, and for best place to work in, for most efficient, for best processes and things. So not that I knew if that really means something, but now that we've worked with them for a couple of years, I know it means a lot, because every new person that they bring in is highly trained, knows what to do, is professional, is really, really good.
Yeah. Okay. So now is the time to tell us a little bit more of those horror stories.
Well, I kind of already did. I mean, these guys, they wouldn't. The first one, like that we hired the wrong one. We hired it based on because it was the first multifamily that we bought, which goes to the point that if you think, real estate has so many different facets, right? And so many different angles that you can take. If you know how to flip land, doesn't mean you know how to manage an apartment complex. If you know how to flip land, if you know how to own and manage single family successful, the dynamics of multifamily are very different, right? So not good or bad, just different, right? A little bit more complex, a little bit different engagement, little different things, and so on. And there's probably no such thing like a perfect property management company. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. You just need to make sure, as you said, Joseph, that the team on the ground is there, highly trained, they know what to do, they follow up. I mean, the team now follows up like on every lead that they've ever heard until that lead tells them no, right? Yep. So if there's 200 leads that are still in that inquired over the last 6 months, they're getting a message, like every week they're getting a message from them. It's like, have you found a place to live already? You want to come back again? And until they tell them, leave me alone, I have a place to live, then we take them off the list. But before we don't, and those are fantastic things to do. Versus the other one, they were like, first of all, they kept the old leasing agent in there. They were completely enabled. Like we said, like, okay, we need to bring these people left, like, as I mentioned, people left like crazy. Like we had 25 vacancies in a matter of 4 months. So down from 7 vacancies to 25. So now the problem gets like, so why are we not filling these vacancies up? Right? We're in a good season for renting. Why are we not filling up? Because they're not rent ready. It's like, okay, so why don't you get them rent ready? Well, we only have one maintenance guy, 90 units. You can't really afford to have 2. So it's like, okay, well, can we bring support in? Well, we only work with licensed companies. Okay, that's fine. Then let's bring in a licensed company. All right, they want $20,000 to make a uni rent ready, and I'm actually not even exaggerating a little too much there. They were like $15,000 to $20,000. It's like, are you guys crazy? Like getting a unit rent ready, if you don't have to replace the kitchen or the bathroom, if you replace the carpet, you know what it costs. Like the carpet is perhaps $1,000 and the rest is $300 in paint and clean up $1,500, $1,600, you should be ready. And they're like, no, we can't do that because we don't have the manpower. It's like, well, then let's temporarily hire another maintenance guy. Well, let us start with that, but it might take 6 to 8 weeks to find one. And they were just like not reacting, not acting. It was trying to push a cart uphill, and it's just, we couldn't get anywhere. And to the degree that I had to, on my own pocket, hire the husband of our leasing lady, who was a handyman, and he brought in 2 other guys, and I paid them outside of property management to get these units rent ready so we could actually lease them. That's how chaotic it ended up turning. And then while we're searching and finding and looking for another property management company, and then the moment we set eyes on, the moment we decided on that one, they were able to actually step in within 2 weeks, which is pretty fast. Usually takes them perhaps 30 days. They were able to step in within 2 weeks, and then they brought in their team of experienced people, and boom, 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 boom. Not only did those units, as I said, within 3 months, we were back to 90%. Within another 2 months, we were at 98%. And we have literally stayed there ever since, for the last pretty much 2 years right now.
Yeah, and these are great examples of what you just said earlier, that different real estate assets have different dynamics to them, right? In a single family world, a person that manages single families, even if it's 30 or 300, they usually don't have their own crew. So AC breaks down, you call an AC technician. Something with plumbing going on, you call in a plumber. And then if I need to get a house ready, I'm calling a contractor that does all the subbing for themselves. Versus in the apartment world, right, we usually have on-site maintenance guys that can do all these things. And if not, then we bring apartment contractors and not retail contractors. That helps you turn a unit for $2-3 grand instead of 20-30 grand. We just went through the same process with a small property we helped one of our clients manage, and we brought in contractors for a 300 square foot a studio apartment. Like, I'm not kidding, 300 square foot, and we got bids over $30,000. And it's kind of like, what's going on here? Like, I can buy another apartment for $30,000. You want to renovate a 300 square foot for $30,000? So yeah, you can't work with retail technicians or retail contractors. It just doesn't make sense in the multifamily world. So tell us a little bit about how you interact with your third-party property management. How often do you have phone calls? Who do you talk to? How often you visit the site?
Right. So it depends on which property it is. So on the one the one in North Carolina, it takes a long time to get to from Phoenix. So it takes a full day to pretty much get there. But so I don't go to that one very often because it's also run beautifully and things. So I might only go there but now, at the beginning I went there more often, but now I might only go there 3 times a year. Right? Now that sounds very little, but we have weekly, I get lots of pictures instead, right? So I get lots of pictures. Last time I went there, I saw that there was a little moss growing on the weather side of them from the sprinklers, because it's 90 units on 15 acres. So there's lots of grass and things. So there's a little moss growing. So I basically ask, okay, by this date, I need all this to be power washed. And then I get building after building after building, I get the pictures, and I don't have to go spend an entire day flying out there, checking, renting a car, doing their staying overnight, and then coming back the next day and be completely wiped out, right? So I get those things. Now, larger decisions right now are coming up. Now that we refinance and thing, and we bought our investors out on that one. So we're keeping this for the long term. So we're making some more major investments into it. So for any of these major investments, I'll make my way out there. So we're adding some extra parking, right? We're converting the shed into an actually leasing office, because right now they're using one of the units as a leasing office, and we need to open it up for revenue. And instead, there's this beautiful shed that's just a 2-car garage, basically, a beautiful building. Actually, it's the same kind of building as the rest of it, just it needs to be converted, which, again, I had asked the first property management company right after we bought it to get us a quote, and it was like $100,000 quote. I was like, really? I don't want to rebuild the thing, right? And I don't want to rebuild it with granite countertops and everything and marble floors. I want it to just, it's basically the equivalent of a burned unit that needs to be redone. It should be costing about $25,000 to finish this up, put some insulation in there, because all plumbing and everything is there already. Right? So now we're getting quotes to make it really pretty, and it might cost 30, 40 or so, but that's in the budget. But when that happens, I want to go out there. But then what we do is I receive an email from them every Monday morning, which lays out exactly all the statistics: how many visitors we've had, how many applications we got, how many approvals, how many new clients, if we have how many people we have on the waiting list, if we have a waiting list. It shows us how many people the leasing agent followed up with. It tells us what we're collection tracking for the month and for the week and for the month, what we're in rent collections, and it tells us what maintenance items were done for the week. And then if there's any activity was done on the property, like a celebration or a party or so, it gives you a bunch of pictures of those. Usually with that, I look through and I might shoot up a clarification email. I don't even have to get on the phone with the team at that time. If the property is at 98% occupied, basically we have one vacant unit.
Yep.
I don't need to then. I have access to, they use Resman as a property management financial tool. So I log into Resman. I have all the day-to-day financials that I can see. I don't need to waste anyone's time and then jump on a call with them. However, but we do get on a call at least, let's say, every 2-3 weeks, just to catch up on stuff. But then also as we put in projects, for every project, when we kick off a project, for those we get more regularly on the phone with each other, because they might get 3 quotes, and I don't want to just look at the quotes. I want to talk to them and say, like, okay, so what's the pros of this one and that one, and we talk these things through. But so there's a few phone calls a month perhaps, and this one email a week, and then perhaps other emails that go through, go back and forth. Now, if you go to a refinance, of course, then the interaction is tenfold higher, right? Because then you need all kinds of stuff from them for the lender, and it just goes back and forth. Now, on the other property, we do a phone call a week, and I get they're a little bit less organized, the other property management company in our Oklahoma market. So they're sending me more, we go to the KPIs that I'm interested in more on the phone. So they send me an email the night before we talk, which says like how many, who applied, who was allowed, who was not. Because, for example, one of the things we did there, we just increased the rental requirements. Actually, right in the middle of COVID, we says like, we want better tenants. So we actually increased the requirements, and successfully, that actually helped us successfully navigate through COVID, because we got, within about 3-4 months, we had quite a bit of turnover, and we got a lot better tenants in, and they paid all throughout the COVID. So it helped a lot. But they also use Resman as a platform. So I can also look at those things. But I have a phone call a week. I might have a phone call with accounting once every 2 months or so, because they book stuff in a way that doesn't make sense to me. And so I'm like diving in, is like, what are you booking like that? And we have a conversation about that. And that's about it. But then there's also an additional, with that regional property manager, she operates very well on text. So we just text back and forth on a bunch of things, and email back and forth, probably another 5-6 emails, I would think. Well, not 5-6 emails a week, but some weeks it can be 5 to 10 emails. Other weeks there's nothing. But so bottom line is we're plugged in on a weekly basis, look at our financials. That might trigger a conference call to dig in some more detail. But again, this property is right now 91% occupied. It was 95, but then we were actually lucky that, last summer, they actually stopped the eviction moratorium for about 4 weeks, or 3-4 weeks, right?
Yeah, between August and September, yeah.
Right. We were ready. We had everything ready for that to stop. The day it stopped, we submitted everything. We got it processed, and we were able to evict 13 people the morning of the reinstatement of the moratorium. So as a result, our occupancy though dropped from 95 to like 86%. And so it took us a little bit to fill that back up, but we're at 91%, but collections are actually higher than they were when we're at 95% because we got better tenants.
Yeah, it's better. Got it. So thanks for sharing all of that, right? So in your journey moving forward, right, do you see yourself buying more multifamily properties?
Yes. So last year we passively invested, but with a significant share in, we became 20% owners in a TIC, in a tenants for a tenants in common structure, whereas only 4 owners. We own 20% of it, of 258 units in Kentucky. So that we invested in that. Now that's passive, but it's 4 owners. It was a great opportunity, great value add, and all 4 owners want to hold on to their property for a long time. So we're like glad to invest a more significant amount in that to just for cash flow. And we're actually hiring a transaction coordinator right now and an acquisition manager in the next few weeks to really get because it was always like something we did like part-time. Like we have a land flipping business, we have an educational business, and we are investing in these assets in order to sometimes the syndications, providing other people an opportunity to invest with us and so on, but also for us to be able to put our own money into something that has the depreciation and the cash flow for more longer term. So with that said, we definitely want to continue that. We have switched our outlook though a little bit, that instead of doing syndications, we might still do a few syndications with a lot of investors, like 30, 40 investors or so. But we also have since connected with a few investors that have similar outlooks as us, that are potentially want to invest like more significant amounts and like put 3 or 4 investors together and own a property for the foreseeable future, like 10, 15 years.
Yes.
And so for that, we can actually tackle a little bit of a different product. So instead of it having to be that product that everyone else chases, which is the value add property, we can go even into an almost a stabilized kind of property, but in a high rent growth market. And just basically because we don't need to make an 8% return in year 1. If we can make a 3, 4, 5% return in year 1, 2, 3, but then with the rent growth, be it an 8%, 10% return in 3 to 5 years, every one of the investor group would be happy, and then we'll just hold it for another 10 years afterwards, continuing to get higher and higher cash flow on the property. So our strategy is shifting a little bit on that end, but it's this is shifting a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's a great point to what you're saying is it all depends on the strategy, and it's all dependent on the investor's expectation, right? So on the syndication world, our investors are always looking for high return and immediate kind of immediacy of that return. And then the high net worth individuals that you're talking about, and I've met a few of those myself, are more into let's buy something that is a higher quality in a better location. We might not see a lot of returns in the first few years, but multifamily and commercial real estate in general is like, I like to say it's like wine. It gets better over time. Right? Because the inflation is eating through your mortgage payments, and rent keep going up and up and up, right? So I totally understand that strategy. So that strategy still aligns with your decision to stay in the third-party management space, right?
It does, because on those kind of properties, there's not that much heavy lifting to do from a value add kind of point of view. So yes, might we end up with a property that we still in the next 5 years need to replace all the kitchens and interiors and upgrade them? Yes, but then it's a 5-year project, right? You buy 200 units and you upgrade 30, 40 units upon move out little by little, and you just basically bring in on payroll potentially almost like 2 extra maintenance guys in, or 2 extra people in that can do that. Property moves out, they go boom, 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 and put it in place. And a good property management company can manage that. I think it becomes a little bit more of an issue if you have to do really a lot of heavy lifting. At that point, I want to be involved, because I want to be involved on a daily, weekly basis. On the other ones, it's just more like checking off the box. Is the next unit ready? Okay, are we doing it within the right parameters, within the right cost, using the same material? Is it uniform? And you just, as long as you put those things in place and you have a good team, it can be managed third party.
Understood. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about value add, right? I know your properties are value add, especially the syndication ones. Give us a few examples of things that you guys like to do in order to bring the property value up from the income perspective. We'll talk about expenses in a little bit, but let's take off the table the usual ones: increase rent, apply rubs, right? So other than these two, what other kind of things you like to do that increases your income in the property you pick up?
So we like to put amenities on the property. Most of the properties we own don't have a whole lot of amenities. Like the one in Kentucky right now is actually getting an indoor pool. Like it's 258 units. So they have this big metal thing, and it was already started, but when we bought it, we decided to finish it up. So it's going to have an indoor pool that the community can use. In that community, I don't think there's another property that has that. But again, it was already, it only took another $50,000 to finish, or $75,000 to finish that pool. And it was already prepared, because that's like $120,000 pool or so. So now on the other one, if I'm thinking about, again, our ones in North Carolina, it has zero amenities. It has zero amenities, and it had zero amenities. So now we added, we're still adding some of them, because like we were just through fixing the issues that the first property management company caused. When we brought back the other one, we were just ready to put in the things, whereas it's like, okay, the winter hits, let's wait out the winter, let's wait for spring 2020 come along. But of course, COVID hit, right?
Yeah.
So we still haven't added anything there other than be able to rent it. We bought it because we knew rents were $150 too low, but that's one of the obvious, right? So what we have done is, what we're doing now is, in the next 2 months, we're adding a playground, we're adding barbecues, we're adding extra parking on the side, we're adding overflow parking over there on both sides of the property. We're adding, because every unit only has one parking spot right in front of its door. So anyone comes to visit, it's not an easy kind of situation. So or some people have husband and wife, obviously, there, where do we put the second car? So that's been a little bit of an issue of contention. So we're adding this out there on the side. Then what else are we doing there? We are adding, we're not adding a pool because it's just too much effort and liability. Insurance rates go up and so on. But a lot of the things we do in our properties are actually intangible. So we are really, really firm believers that even a C-class property, even the tenants in a C-class property, which is typically like workforce housing, they don't just want the place to put their head at night, right? They want the place to feel, and first of all, they need to feel safe. So one of the things we do is we put up a light. The first thing we do is we increase the night lighting on the property by a factor of 10. Like we go out and put big bright LED lights all at every door and everything, and turn and disable the ability of the tenants to actually turn it off. So basically, they have photovoltaic things. At night they turn on, and in the morning they turn off, and that means the property is lit up like a Christmas tree, because that single mom that works at Walmart and comes out from the night shift at 11, or from the late shift at 11 p.m., that single mom wants to feel safe on that property, right? So those are little things, more psychological things that make a difference. What do? We upgrade the interiors to actually now in that unit, they're all townhomes. There are 2-story units. We're actually replacing the carpet to the entire units, even upstairs.
Okay.
So
So
that helps.
First of all,
pardon?
You're going to hard floors even on the second floors?
Even on the second floor. Well, the vinyl looking hard floors.
Yeah.
Even on the second one, because most of them we realized is like a husband and wife, a single person, or perhaps a single mom with a couple of kids and so on. And if it's your own kids trampling on you, it does less bothersome than if it's somebody else in another apartment tramples on there. So we just tested one unit. Tenants love it. So we're going to roll this out over the next over the other units over the next year, because not only is it the units look nicer, And then our other property in Oklahoma, all the units are like that. Now they're all single floor units. They're all a piece of carpet in that property anymore. So that helps on both ends. It's a one-time little bit more investment, but then it's a cost saver. But it also is a higher perceived value than a shampooed property that still has a bunch of cigarette stains, right? So it looks nicer. It looks like, oh wow, this looks cool. And then people go to somewhere and get themselves a $50 rug, to IKEA, get themselves an $80 rug if they really want to feel something soft under their feet. And now they have a nice looking unit. So that's something we do in everyone. But we're really big on trying to create a community. So we're big on doing barbecues. We're big on doing 4th of July. We're big on doing Easter egg hunts. We're doing back to school backpacks. We're doing popcorn in the office for the kids to come in. We're doing things like that to provide decorating contests for Halloween and things that people can embrace and feel like they're part of it. And even in one property, we did something. We found a local community college where some of the kids needed extra hours, like for some reason they needed hours in community service or something like that. And it was part of their curriculum. So we brought them in as math tutors for the kids in the school. Great. So they basically twice a week, this college student comes in and the kids of the neighborhood, because that property happens to be right next to a not very good elementary school, right? So the kids that stay there, they're going to that school and they're struggling. Well, guess what? Now there's somebody that for free gives them some tutoring so that they can advance a little bit more. And that's just super well received in the community by the tenants. Some of them treat it as babysitting, which is okay too, but others are see the values like, yeah, I want my kid to be successful. Like, and so that so we're trying to do well by doing good too.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It's a very creative way to add value and bring value to the community, and it doesn't cost you anything but a phone call to the local community college. I love that idea. We haven't heard that one before on the show. That's definitely a great one.
Good, I'm glad. We also added the gym. I saw this little storage room off the leasing office, and it's big enough to put a treadmill, some weights, and a bicycle thing on there, and a rack or for weights and so on. So it's like, why don't we just turn the door from inside to the outside and put a key card thing in there, and people can get a key card for $10 that if they bring the key card back, they get their $10 back. But they can go, now we have a 24/7 gym, right? Which we didn't have before. So little things like that add amenities with the barbecues, with the pergolas, with the thing. And now we're replacing on one of the properties, on that same property, we were on a leasing program with the laundry units, and it has its own separate standing building with like 10 washers and dryers and 10 washers and 10 dryers. And the leasing is over because the leasing made us no money. And there was these old top loader machines. So we basically told them to kick them out. And within the next 6 to 8 weeks, we're bringing in our own equipment there. So our maintenance staff is now being trained up to fix those. And we're going to have a little bit variety of things, not just the small ones, but we're going to have at least one big one. So we might only have 9 washers, like 8 small ones, a medium one, and a big, like 7 small ones, a medium one, and a big one. And now we get to keep all that revenue, and we calculated it should add about $1,500 to $2,000 a month in actual profit to the bottom line. I mean, that's 20 grand a year that's a $300,000-$400,000 value add to the property.
Yep, fantastic. Great. So let's flip the coin and talk about expenses, right? What do you guys do to kind of shave off expenses or be more efficient on your expenditure?
Right. So, one thing is, for example, the laundry thing itself, because as I discovered shortly into owning the property, is that we not only did we get only like this tiny revenue share, which usually the results literally was like $80 in the year we made on that thing, but we also had to pay for all the water and the gas because it was connected to our main unit. So now shaving that and turning it over is not only going to increase revenue, but also at least we're now spending the money on our own stuff, right?
Yeah.
So other than, I think the really one of the biggest ones is we have on the 146 unit property, we have one maintenance guy and one guy who's mainly in charge of turns. So these two are good, but because of that, we don't have to do almost anything outside. Like it's extremely rare that we have to bring in an outside company. So we have the salary expenses, but not much more. Like it's extremely rare that we have to replace an AC because we got all this different, because they can fix the ACs, and some of these ACs are pretty old and they still fix them and fix them and fix them. So that saves tens of thousands of dollars a year over the course of that property, because you got 146 ACs of which you don't have to replace. Even if it's just 10 a year, it's 40, 50 grand that you're saving.
Yeah. So here's a little trick on that one that we've learned is I found a contact that works for a company that installs new ACs. And I told them, look, on my properties, we have 2 to 2.5 tons condensers. So if you go out and you replace a working one, save it for me. So we end up, I think we bought like 30 or 40 condensers last year at a cost of like $200-300 a piece. So we were able to replace, broken parts and get all new condensers that are in good working shape. We usually like to take when they do like a bank. So banks and big commercial companies, they replace ACs on a schedule, not when they need to, right? Because if you're a bank, you can't wait till the AC breaks down, right? And then the entire branch is a hot sauna in Texas, right? You replace those on schedule, even though they could have 2, 3, 4 years more left in them. So they take off really good units and they put brand new ones. So we were happy to take those off their hands and saved us tens of thousands of dollars in the last few years.
I love that idea. That's great. What else do we do? I mean, there isn't that much that we on one of the units, one of the properties, on the carpets that exist, we bought a carpet cleaning machine ourselves, and then the maintenance guy is carpet cleaning the machine, so it shaves off $150 of that or whatever. It like saves us a little bit money there. We've seen there's that much. Well, one of the things is one of the property managements that's also again in favor of third party management. In this case, they are so big that they're well known in Texas. They're so big that they bring in their own. They bring in their container full of stuff from fixtures from China. And yes, makes their product a little bit kind of like predictable in the sense that, if you walk into a property that they manage, it's the same kind of stuff. But what it does, it's pretty, we don't ever have to go to Home Depot and pay $150 for whatever it is, because they pass it on pretty much as a service to their properties at cost, or if it's just a very slight markup. So we get what cost at Home Depot $150, we get it for 75 or 80, right? So that saves a lot of money, and then mainly having well-trained people that can fix all kinds of stuff. Because again, unless it's something major, we don't have to bring outside contractors out for almost anything. And then again, it comes down to having a good regional manager. Our regional manager on that property is a hustler. She doesn't take no for an answer, and she's gonna find the best contractor that does it, like a really good contractor that does it for a really low dollar amount, and so so that all together keeps costs fairly down.
Yeah, fantastic. I want to be conscious of your time. I know you have another appointment coming up soon. If you met young Jack 10, 20 years ago, right? And you can tell yourself that, 2009 is the bottom, buy everything you can. What advice would you give yourself?
I probably would have accelerated to multifamily quicker, right? Because again, I love our land business. We're going to do land flipping for the rest of our lives. I love teaching it, but long term, wealth generation, long-term and big, massive wealth generation happens more with the multifamily, but it's also 3.2 million times more complicated, right? So, so don't get me wrong. So I wouldn't change a thing in what I've done. I would have probably transitioned from, well, not transitioned. I would have probably added multifamily 5 years earlier.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I would have done 5 or 10 years earlier than I have, about 5 years earlier than I have, and would have done more quicker. Right. But it's okay. We've done well. We won't complain. We're at a really beautiful spot in life, and life is good.
Awesome. Okay. So tell our audience where they can find you. If they want to reach out, invest with you, or learn more about your land flipping business, how can they find you? And we'll obviously put links in the show notes.
Right. So if you want to know more about our apartment complex investing activities, you can go to Orbit Investments, so ORBIT investments.com. If you want to know more about the land, which we really didn't talk about, but if you're intrigued by that, you can go to Land Profit Fun, like having fun, landprofitfun.com, and check out more details there.
Awesome.
And also jackbosch.com, my website. I'm on Facebook. I'm on different platforms everywhere. YouTube.
Awesome. Jack, you've been fantastic. You brought a lot of value to our audience. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And for you, the audience, if you want to hear more, please subscribe. Doesn't matter if it's on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you consume your podcast, and feel free to leave us a review. We'll see you later in our next episode. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to our show. If you want to enjoy more episodes, please subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, or SoundCloud. For questions or feedback, please visit our site at www.aptopr.com.